Well, here I am again, and I'm sitting in the same place, and I'm wearing the same clothes. And you might think I may not have moved for a week, but lo and behold, I'm recording two of these in one evening. Um, I'm here today to talk to you about something many of you already know about, and that's the importance of using specific detail, original detail as Natalie Goldberg calls it, showing instead of telling. Every writing class you've ever taken probably has mentioned in your writing. On one hand, you want to describe things to show a world, to make it real enough. On the other hand, you don't want to flood your reader with so many details that the story is lost. I'm going to share two excerpts from two of my favorite writers, one that shows a place and one that shows a person. The first is from Anne Patchett's novel, The Magician's Assistant, which I have to say I did stay up till 3:30 last night visiting, or this morning reading, 3:30 a.m. And you can see the effects of staying up so too late. And what I like so much about Anne Patchett's writing is that she keeps the action moving while unfolding the depth of her characters and also showing you the places that they're moving through and how that shapes them. This paragraph, very long paragraph I'm going to read you, is about Sabine. Sabine is the main protagonist in this novel, and Sabine had been married to Parsifal, who was a gay man and a magician, and she was deeply in love with him, worked as his assistant for 22 years. This is all within the first few pages, so I'm not doing too much of a spoiler here. And Parsifal was actually in love with Pan, one of a Vietnamese man who was his great beloved and had died a year before Parsifal. And Sabine, after the funeral, is home in the big house that all three of them lived in. And here is a paragraph about what that space felt like for her. After the funeral, Sabine moved downstairs into Pan and Parsifal's room. She slept in their bed. She pushed her head beneath their feather pillows. She slept like Parsifal used to sleep, endlessly. She stayed in bed when she wasn't asleep. She used their shampoo and dark green soap. The room smelled like men. Their towels were as big as tablecloths. Hairbrushes, toothbrushes, shoe polish, every item took on the significance of memory. Suddenly Sabine could see just how full the house was, just how much they had owned. She was now responsible for Parsifal's 2 rug stores, for every sweater in the closet, for Fan's toy mouse, the only thing he had left from his childhood in Vietnam, who watched her from the dresser with painted-on eyes. She had IRAs, CDs, money markets, insurance premiums, quarterly tax reports, warranties. She had the love letters that were not written to her, the paperback mysteries, the address books. She was the last stop for all of the accumulations and memorabilia, all of the achievements and sentimentality of 2 lives, and one of those lives should not have come to her in the first place. What would she do with Fan's postcard collection, with his box of patterns for bridal gowns, with the 5 filing cabinets that were stuffed full of notes about computer programs and software programs, all written in Vietnamese? Closing her eyes, she imagined her parents' deaths. She imagined her loneliness taking the shape of boxes and boxes of other people's possessions, a terminal moraine that would keep all she had lost in front of her. She was nailed to this spot, to the exact hour of Parsifal's death. And then, what about when she died? Who was going to look over the picture of Fan's family and wonder about them then? Who could possibly wonder about Sabine? So I bring this to you because I think it's a marvelous summary of a life, of a story, of a place. And the way that Anne Patchett writes about it tells you a lot about the backstory through what objects she selects, what she lands on, and also mixing together the day-to-day with the more romantic or more charged love letters and warranties. The other excerpt I'd like to share is from Jane Hamilton's book, A Short History of a Prince. And this is just a one-paragraph description of our protagonist as a boy. And I just haphazardly found this while leafing through page 49. He wanted to talk to Lucy not because he wished to cast a golden light on his past, but because finally in his premature middle age he was afraid he guessed of life itself. He was afraid of the boys who sat in their bedrooms in the glow of their computer screens, communing in sentence fragments with people they would never meet. When he thought of all those little zombies his stomach hurt. So many people seduced by technology that bred impatience and greed. What was good, what had stood the test of time and value, was thrown out and replaced with a perpetual present that was slick and speedy and shallow. His stomach juices churned, the muscles clenched. He was well aware of the fact that others before him had been as frightened by the next generation's ignorance and bad manners in just the same way. It was certainly not abnormal to believe the new crop was deficit, but perspective did make the distress less keen. In his blackest moods, Walter feared that the books, music, art, everything he loved, were going to be overlooked by the coming spiritless and nescient generation. Now, I chose that passage because it's about a lot of big general ideas, and yet it lands on specifics. The way his stomach juices churned, the muscles clenched, the little moments here and there that bring these very big general and strong feelings, and feelings are almost always abstract when they're not tethered to specific image, down to something that can be conveyed in a way that show who a character is, that show the time he came from and the time he's living in. Finally, when talking about specific images, and also we've been looking some at story behind the story, I just wanted to mention how the smallest objects can hold so much in them. My husband set up this space where he could film me, and he put this lovely green cup here. This was made by the husband of one of my former students. Husband is a great potter, and it's a great cup. And what I will always remember about that student is that she grew up in a very, very strict religious community, very small town, where she felt that she had to be particularly careful of her words and expression. And at our cabaret at Goddard one year, right close to when she was graduating, she got in front of a mic in front of a few hundred people and said the word vagina repeatedly. It was a great moment for her, and I can't quite look at the cup without thinking of that. I pick up this object, which is a wonderful little vase that the husband of a friend of mine got on a trip to Mexico. He buys them from artisans there and sells them in the Twin Cities as a way to send money back to the artisans. And I could tell you stories about the story behind the story there, but I was going to just mention that I chose this because it had a butterfly. And I know this may sound cheesy, but I got this when I was in the Twin Cities to take my daughter to college and leave her there. And I know some of you are from the cities or have been there often. Let's just say I drove back and forth, St. Paul, Minneapolis. I had no idea which one I was in from moment to moment, sometimes crying so hard I could barely see the street in front of me. And somehow getting a vase with a butterfly unfurling and flying just gave me a teeny bit more strength. The small things around our lives all the time hold such big stories. The things we choose to keep close to us, the things we get rid of, the things we give to others, the things we take into our homes and hearts, often reveal so much about character, about plot, about theme, about the core of your story. So choose your details wisely, follow your characters closely, listen deeply, and pay attention to all the magnificent details unfolding all the time that bring you closer to your strongest novel. Thanks so much for hanging out with me.